Hello, guys, and thank you for making time to read my story. I see a lot of mothers here who like to read these stories, so I thought my story would be good for you guys. My story does have a bad mother-in-law, but somehow I ended up having a bad husband as well. I can't tell you guys how envious I become when I read beautiful stories about husbands showing their shiny spines to their mothers. Unfortunately for me, I had no such luck. Sometimes I really think that I'm just unlucky in marriage. I married my high school sweetheart at a very young age and had my son Ryder. We had a happy family till Ryder's father passed away after battling cancer for 2 years. Ryder was just 6 back then. It took me a while to grieve my late husband and get back into the dating scene. Somehow Jared made it seem like I could find happiness with him again. At the very beginning of my relationship, I had warned him. You know, Jared, I'm actually positive that we can have a good relationship and even marriage in the future. I really do love you, but there is something you should be aware of. As you know, Ryder's father is no longer with us, so he needs a father figure in his life. If we do end up marrying, you will have to take responsibility and be his second father. I know that, Lisa. I have thought about it a lot. I would be happy to be in his life. I can't have kids of my own, so this would be an amazing chance for me to be a father. You don't have to worry about anything. Thank you so much for saying that, Jared. You have no idea how relieved I am. I wasn't lying. I did love that man and didn't want to lose him. But had he given me the slightest hint that he didn't want my son in his life, I would have walked away. Ryder was my priority. Jared knew that as well. A year later, I introduced him to my son and they hit it off right away. Ryder actually ended up liking him too. Slowly, they developed a nice bond, or so I had thought. My son absolutely adored Jared and I thought all was well, so when he proposed to me, I said yes and married him. Unfortunately for me, I had made a bad decision, but I didn't know that yet. Now, the trouble starts shortly after our marriage. Jared's mother, Tracy, started to come over a lot, and she never really took to Ryder. She also didn't like me because I was damaged goods, in her words. She also said, "It's such a shame my son has to raise someone else's child. I wish I had intervened sooner and stopped him from making such a big decision." What seems to be the problem, Tracy? Jared and Ryder are really close, and they have a great relationship. Our family is absolutely perfect. Oh, of course you would say that. Jared didn't shackle you with a useless stepchild like you had. My poor son is wasting his money on someone who isn't even his blood. It's really such a shame. Tracy's words hurt me a lot. I did talk to Jared about it, but he always dismissed his mother as a dramatic woman. He kept assuring me and Ryder that he loves us, so what his mother says doesn't matter. We were stupid enough to believe that. My son was just a teenager, but I should have known better. I definitely should have known better than to allow Tracy to move in with us. What can I say? She was Jared's mother, and he had to take her responsibility when she got evicted. Since Jared didn't have a good job, he couldn't pay her rent and her bills together, so he discussed this with me, and Tracy moved in with us. I have never regretted making a decision so much in my life again. Tracy was the one who played a key role in ending my marriage. She moved in with us and started to slow poison Jared against Ryder. The changes were so subtle that I almost didn't notice. They were both cordial towards Ryder, but I could tell that Jared was acting a little cold towards my son. Ryder was also confused and a bit hurt. I was about to talk to Jared about that before something horrible happened. I was on my way back from the office when my son called me crying. Ryder was literally sobbing as he said, "Mom, I'm at Grandma's house. Tracy had kicked me out. She packed my bags and had them out on the porch before I came back from school. A friend dropped me off here because she wouldn't let me in." "What the hell, Ryder? Did you call Jared? Where is he?" He's at work, Mom. I called him and he just hung up on me. Tracy kept saying that they didn't want me in the house anymore and I wasn't welcome back. Ryder, listen to me. That is not true. No one can kick you out of your home like that. Stay with Grandma. I'm coming over. I raced to my mom's house and barely managed to calm down my son. He was a mess, and seeing him like that broke my heart. I was mad with anger and wanted to strangle Tracy. I told Ryder to stay with my mom so that he wouldn't have to witness the drama at home. I really wanted to yell at Tracy without my son hearing it. After comforting Ryder, I angrily drove home to confront my mother-in-law. As soon as I saw her in the living room, I stormed up to her and said, "Why is my son telling me that you've kicked him out of the house? Do you have anything to say about that?" "Yes, I kicked him out. He won't be staying with us anymore. My son can't have someone else's child living in our house." "Excuse me? Have you lost your damn mind? Jared is married to me, so Ryder is his responsibility too. Ryder is not some random stranger he's housing out of charity." "That means nothing, Tracy. Ryder is still Jared's stepson, so he is not my son's responsibility. I won't let him bankrupt himself by taking care of someone who doesn't even have his blood." "How do you think that would work? Since we are already married, Jared knew what he was getting himself into. I don't see why he would suddenly change his mind about something like this." "Too bad for you that he already did change his mind, Lisa. He's on board with me about kicking Ryder out. Why did you think anyone would take care of a child you had with another man?" "Wait. Are you saying that Jared knew about this and had actively encouraged you?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Lisa. Your own husband doesn't want to keep your spawn. If you don't believe me, why don't you ask him directly, Lisa?" My mind was spinning with all the information that Tracy was throwing at me. First, it started with her stupid banter about how Ryder is not blood and shouldn't be my husband's problem. Then she told me that Jared agreed with her statements and supported her in kicking out my son. This was all news to me, since Jared never said something like this out loud to me. Hell, when we started to date, I made it clear that he would have to take Ryder's responsibility because my son's father was dead. Now, his mom is suddenly saying that Jared lied to me when he told me he was okay with this. Readers, for a moment, I felt very vulnerable. The possibility of my husband turning out to be such a cruel man absolutely destroyed my heart. Tracy looked all smug and was smirking at me when she said that Jared agreed with her. She seemed so confident that I started to have doubts about my husband. But instead of just jumping to conclusions, I decided to call Jared home immediately. The fact that he sounded nervous when speaking to me also didn't sit well with me. When Jared returned home, he avoided looking directly at me. At that point, I knew that Tracy was probably right about my husband, so in a stern voice, I said, "Jared, your mother has tried to kick Ryder out of the house today. Do you have anything to say about this?" "Well, what do you want me to say, Lisa?" "So, Tracy was right. She said that you support her actions and wanted this to happen as well. Tell me, Jared, why do you think kicking out my son is a good idea?" "Oh, come on, Lisa. We're tired of saying the same thing again and again. My son will not raise your stupid child. Some kid with a stranger's blood will not live with us." "You have already made your stance clear, Tracy. I wasn't talking to you at all. I was asking Jared, so you need to shut up and let him talk. Jared, tell me what you want." Jared was actually stammering a little and refusing to look into my eyes. He knew that what he was going to say would piss me off to a great extent. It also didn't help that I actually looked pretty mad and had my no-nonsense voice while talking. Jared was a little hesitant to speak out for himself, so his mother nudged him a little to boost his confidence. She said, "Jared, go ahead and tell your wife what you want. This is your house, and you deserve to have a say in who stays here and who doesn't. You don't have to feel guilty for anything." "You were right, Mom. This is my house, too, so I should get a say in who stays here. Lisa, I actually agree with my mom about kicking Ryder out." "Are you serious right now? You want to kick my son out of the house? Where the hell is this even coming from? This is insane." "Look, Lisa, I know he's your son and all, but he's not mine. You can't really expect me to have the kid in my house when he has no relationship with me. I don't see why I have to house him. What the hell are you talking about, Jared? Ryder is your freaking stepson. You can't just throw him out and expect me to be okay with this. What's up with all the your son, my son bullshit? You agreed to take care of my son long before we got married. That was before we got married, Lisa. Now that we have, I don't feel comfortable having Ryder around. Sure, we can be holiday parents or even weekend parents, but keeping him full-time is too much. He's becoming a burden. I don't see why I should make someone's child my problem. It would be right to say that I was completely flawed. This man, the man that I married, was telling me to become a holiday parent to my own son? Let me just remind you guys that this man promised to take care of Ryder like his own. Now he was telling me to drop my son off God knows where because he didn't want Ryder around full time. And this was after knowing full well for years that Ryder doesn't have another living parent. It was all so bizarre that I actually had to ask what he was thinking. I looked at Jared in disbelief and said, "Excuse me, Jared? Are you telling me to become a holiday parent to my own son? Do you even hear yourself? My son's father is freaking dead. Where do you even think I should make him stay the rest of the time? Why don't you just drop him off at your mom's? She's having a good time lounging around doing nothing. She should take care of Ryder full time now instead of making me host your son for free. Why won't you just ask his own grandma?" You don't freaking host my son, Tracy. We are the ones who host you for free. You don't pay us a cent for anything, so just shut your damn mouth. Hey, you can't talk to my mom like that. We agreed to let her stay with us for free. It was our decision. You cannot insult her for that now. I didn't know whether I wanted to laugh or cry. My husband was casually sitting on the couch and telling me that having his mooching mother in the house was perfectly acceptable, while my underage son was not welcome. It was so bizarre, and the irony of the situation was not lost on me. I said, "Exactly, Jared. You agreed to take care of Ryder and have him in your life. Now you have no right to backtrack and expect me to agree with you." Oh, please, you can't compare these two things. This is different, Lisa. Mom has no one else, while Ryder has your family. Mom is right. Your mom should step in and take Ryder. He is her blood anyway. It's better that way. You are absolutely insane, Jared. Do you even hear yourself? You are adamant about kicking my underage son out of the house. What kind of a man are you, Jared? The kind of man who won't be taken advantage of, Lisa. For years you have forced my son to take care of your useless child. Poor Jared had to play dad to some dead man's son while having no children of his own. Thank God I came here and drilled some sense into him. There it was. My doubts turned out to be true after all. It was Tracy who put these ridiculous ideas in Jared's head. But as much as I wanted to blame it all on Tracy, I knew that Jared was equally at fault. He readily went along with his mother's horrible teachings and changed his mind about Ryder. The things he said about Ryder being a burden and not his problem just made my blood boil. These were the words of a man who already had these feelings somewhere deep down in his heart. That's why it was so easy for him to say those words. I sighed, heaving, and finally said, "I knew this was all your doing. Thanks for the confirmation, Tracy. You did a good job turning my husband against me and my son." "I'm not against you at all, Lisa. I just don't want a stepchild in my home. It's not too much to ask. I deserve to be comfortable in my own home." "So, this is your final decision. You don't want to have Ryder in this house?" "Yes, Lisa. I don't want someone else's child in my home. This is my home, and I deserve to be comfortable here. I am going to have a say in who stays here permanently, and Ryder is not one of them." At this point, I simply laughed. Yes, guys, I laughed a little because I realized the full irony of the situation. Jared was asking my son to leave the home while his mom stayed despite not being related to me by blood. Then he reminded me about how I promised him to take care of his mom, as if he didn't just break his promise to take care of my son. But in the end, what made things even more funny was the fact that he kept calling the house his. He kept saying that he didn't want Ryder in his home, but he might have forgotten that the house Jared and his freeloading mom were staying in was mine. Readers, you have read that right. The house was actually mine. It used to be my late husband's property, which he had willed to me. So after his passing, I was made the owner of the house. Technically speaking, this was Ryder's home as much as it was mine, and my current husband was acting like the house belonged to him and his mom. They didn't even have any right to decide who could and couldn't stay in my house. I stayed quiet and didn't remind them of this fact before because I wanted to see how far they could go. But now my patience was already running thin, and I knew I needed to put them in their place. I said, "It's funny how you keep saying this is your house, Jared. Did you just forget the fact that this house is in fact all mine?" "Well, yes, this house is yours, but we are married now, so this is my house as well." "Yeah, that's right. What belongs to you also belongs to Jared. Just because your name is on the deed, that doesn't mean Jared has no right to call it his home." "Lisa, this is a joint household now, and two people, that is me and my mom, don't want Ryder to be here. That has to count for something. We are a family, so you should consider our opinions." "It's funny how your mom is suddenly in our family and household while my son isn't. You do have some double standards, Jared. I wish I would have seen it sooner." "You can't blame me for not having some strange unrelated child in my house. No one would do that." I was already tired of hearing how Ryder was some strange child. It was seriously pissing me off and driving me over the edge. While Jared and Tracy were invested in making their stance and forcing me to kick Ryder out, I was making some decisions of my own. It was already quite clear to me that Jared wasn't the man I thought. He was not the sweet and caring man that my son had grown to love. No, this man had turned into an entitled monster. And I didn't want anything to do with him anymore. Now that I know how Jared really feels about Ryder, I wasn't going to have my son stay in a toxic household. So I looked at Jared and said, "You're right, Jared. Literally, no one would want to have someone else's child in their house." "Oh, thank God you're finally seeing how ridiculous that was. See, it wasn't so difficult to realize what was right." "Yes, I did make a huge mistake in the past. I really should have sat you down and listened to what you had to say." "I've been telling you for ages, but you wouldn't listen to me. But I don't mind that anymore. At least now you have understood your fault." "Yes, I have absolutely understood my fault. You two are right. I cannot have someone else's child living in my house. So what do you say, Jared? When can I expect you to move out?" Jared and Tracy both looked shocked when I said those words. I guess they hadn't expected me to say that to them. They had stupidly expected me to agree with them and throw my son out. I don't know what drugs they were on that made them so confident about their stupid thoughts. Well, they were not entirely wrong, though. I was going to throw out someone who isn't the homeowner's son. They just hadn't realized that it would be Jared. They looked panicked and said, "What are you talking about, Lisa? Why the hell would I move out?" "Well, you're not my son or related to me by blood, so I don't see why I should house you for free. Also, you are not my daughter either, Tracy, so you will be moving out with Jared too." "This is ridiculous, Lisa. You can't just ask us to move out. We are your family. Jared is your husband, and you can't kick out your own husband." "Yeah, I want my mom in the house. I contribute to the household, so I get a say in who stays here. You can't just threaten to kick me out. I'm your husband." "Yes, you are my husband, but you won't be one very soon. Do you really think I would stay married to you after all this? What kind of a doormat do you think I am? The only thing you will get after today are divorce papers." Jared was now in full panic mode. He realized that I wasn't going to give in to his and his mother's demands. Instead, I was actually making decisions of my own and doing what I think is right. So I was keeping my son in the house and kicking them out instead. Tracy and Jared were shocked at my declaration and somehow thought that they could change my mind. They said, Now, you don't have to be so dramatic. We were just making some suggestions. There's no reason to get so serious." "You were making suggestions by literally kicking my son out with his clothes? What kind of a joke is this, Tracy?" "These won't work on me anymore." Okay, we don't have to kick out Ryder. He can stay in the house. We won't mind. We take it back. He's a good kid anyway. We'll just adjust." "Oh, no. You don't get to make decisions anymore, Jared. You have no right to talk. My son doesn't need you to allow him to stay, but you do need my permission to stay here, which I am not giving to you. You two better have your bags packed because I will file for eviction and divorce tomorrow. I wouldn't sit around wasting time if I were you." Jared and Tracy started to reason with me. When calmly talking about it changed nothing, they resorted to begging and pleading. It was honestly a little satisfying after seeing my son cry his heart out. Their prayers and begging were all I needed to avenge my son. I know it sounds dramatic, but that's how I felt. Seeing my son so broken had my heart shattered to pieces. That is exactly why it was such an easy decision to make. The very next day, I hired a good lawyer who would fight my case. I had the divorce papers drawn and served very soon after. Also, the eviction papers followed. Jared and Tracy were pretending that everything was fine until they were hit with divorce and eviction papers. Then the tears and begging started again. I simply told them that it wouldn't work and not to bother anymore. I was counting the days till they would leave and I would have my son back in the house. Ryder didn't want to be around Jared or Tracy and was happy to be at his grandma's till they had left. So a month was up soon and Jared was forced to move out with his mum. He tried to beg and plead until the very end. In the days up to their leaving, Jared and Tracy ended up fighting between themselves. Jared blamed his mom for ruining his marriage, while Tracy kept saying that this was all his fault. I did live through some noisy nights, but those had stopped when they left. Thankfully, I didn't have to wait for a divorce for long as well. Now I am happy being a divorced woman and living a good life with my son. Jared is barely scraping by while his mom moved to another state after he refused to pay for her expenses. So those two idiots are now miserable, and that was the best revenge I could get in my life.